Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. First show of 2023. Happy
made
New
it.
Year.
Happy New Year.
Did we? Did we make
Uh,
it? Where? How are you, my friend? I missed you these past 2 weeks. How's your
yeah,
New
we
Year?
we didn't plan on having last week off. Just got
Yeah.
busy, and unfortunately, with lots of family around and things the way they are, we had to pass on the show. But I had a great start to the new year. Power out for 5 hours,
Excellent.
internet out, cell phone out, no lights,
Fantastic.
no nothing. And
Oh my God.
I think I tweeted something about it, but it really was like you're on your own. It was like the God just came down and said, "This is the message for the new year. You got to build fire, like put some bottled water away."
Oh my God, become a prepper. I mean, I feel like what has been resoundingly clear over the past 3 years is that we are absolutely all on our own. So whether it's the power grid, climate change, COVID, uh, figure it out. Use your own tools.
Yes,
You got the
absolutely.
tools.
So how was your week? How was the time off from the show?
It was great. I think when last I left you, I had 9 members of my family here in Los Angeles. I mean, including my 4, which was really fun and awesome. And, it was a little chaotic. No one has ever accused me of having a ton of energy. And I did not surprise them this time. My brother has 2 little kids who are awesome, but obviously require energy. I have a puppy, requires energy. And luckily, this show has prepped me well for just drinking through lots of stuff.
Drink. Do you have a
Drink,
shot
drink,
wheel at
drink.
home? Like feed the kids. Shot.
Yeah, that was, I mean,
You
and
should.
by the way, everybody else was sort of joining me in that venture. So we were all taking care of providing our own happiness. But no, it was really fun. We had a great time, ate and drank everything, and now the house feels really empty because it's just back to the 3 of us: my husband Josh and my younger son Xander. Everybody
But
else is gone.
you still got that dog to give you hell.
Oh my God, lucky, yeah.
Yeah.
May she be better trained in the new year.
Good luck.
um, good luck. Yeah. So what do you want to do? Should we just get right into it? Do you want to talk about anything that's not on our wheel? Are
Oh,
you yeah.
I did want to give a heads up, just a small warning. Power's been dropping in and out a lot lately. Not today, but I'm in Sacramento and like
Are you bomb
100.
cycloning it? Is that the bomb cyclone where you are?
Well, no, the new phrase they keep using, which someone, if you know, I don't know, meteorology. I don't know what the term
Yeah.
is, but I keep hearing atmospheric river. Has anyone heard that phrase before? Because
It sounds horrifying. What does that
yeah,
mean?
that's what they keep saying about these storms above us, that we have an atmospheric river. And
Okay.
I'm so I just want to give warning that power could come out. If I drop out, I'm going to try to get back on my phone or some other way, but
Right.
could be on your own, Lila.
Okay, I'll use my tools.
But
I will drink through it.
yeah, but this week, because of all the power outages, it's been busy as hell for me as an electrician. Like we
Right.
went to one place where, and SMUD is our local power in for most of Sacramento. It's called
Okay.
SMUD, and they're so backed up because it's such a treed city that a million trees have fallen around town.
Oh,
And what happens is
geez.
these old trees fall, take down a power line. So SMUD is so backed up that they're not even getting out the service calls to turn off active power lines in streets.
Do not touch them, anybody.
Don't go near them. Put up some caution tape or some, whatever you
Wow.
got to keep people from going there. Like we went to one house where there was a live power line. Actually, there was 2 houses, and you know how sometimes they'll have a walkway through to a park or something so people can get there
Yeah.
quickly. Well, it was a walkway to a school, and there's
Oh,
a
geez.
live power line hanging down in the walkway to a school, and they couldn't get SMUD out there, so they called us.
Oh my God.
So it's
Could you
like,
fix it? Did you fix it?
well, by fixed, I mean we capped the lines so that
They wouldn't kill
unless you're
anybody.
really playing with the line,
Right.
you're not going to get zapped. But I mean, and eventually they came out and killed the power like the next day or something. But like,
But then, I mean, that's better than anybody electrocuting himself or herself or themselves or whatever. But it's not. Then you're just creating a new problem,
yeah,
right?
obviously.
I
Anyway, be
see
safe.
Mary is writing that our audio is weird, and I'm sorry because I'm not sure what to do about that. So my apologies.
Is mine too loud? Not loud enough? Anyone got
I don't
any
know.
suggestions?
I'm sorry because
over?
it doesn't sound weird on my end, but I think there is a lot of, it's been raining nonstop in Los Angeles, and that typically just shuts the city down. We get flooding, the roofs leak, and power goes out also. So I'm sorry. I'm sure that has something to do with it on one of our ends or both. Some people are saying it sounds okay. So, okay. Well, we're just going to power through. I think we should get to our wheel.
I'm not against that. Let's do it. Righty.
All right, here we go. We got Mayo Pete and Greet, our transportation secretary, timeline cleanse, which I think we're all in much need of every day, force the vote.
Why won't Bree let that lie? Why won't Bree drop that?
New year, new COVID, and how to be a billionaire. Let's spin the wheel.
Yeah, baby.
Ever since my kids were little, we're not allowed to say HATE in the house. I felt like that was a word we should ban. And yet, this dude is pushing his limits with me. I am glad he keeps exposing himself. What a disaster. Doing a heck of a job.
Careful with that phrase.
Yeah.
Glad he's exposing himself, is what you said.
Sorry,
yeah.
I was like, ding, ding, what did I say? Yeah.
That applies to him and Biden, of course, who notoriously had someone come to his house and a cleaner, and was at the pool and dropped his robe and many other possible things.
Yeah, Biden used to do that to his Secret Service people. His female
Secret Service too.
Yep.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
And somebody's saying I need to be closer to my mic for less reverb. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna try and fix it before next week, but I can't do it right now. So I'm sorry. Please bear with us. Yes, Mackenzie, my mission in life is to prevent this man from getting close to the White House. So every time we can just, well.
Would you rather stop him or Kamala? I mean, I feel like Kamala's going to stop herself, I think, unless she inherits the position, which we can do literally nothing about. But until 2024, if she's on the ballot. But
I think Pete has more people fooled.
Yeah,
I think there are more people. I posted a tweet about him exposing himself. Sorry, there I go again. But revealing himself. What do you want me to do, Pat? What do you want? Give me a thesaurus.
Whipping it out.
Yeah, whipping. Yeah. What an incompetent, corrupt disaster he is. The mayor of the fourth largest town in Indiana, who was reviled by most of his constituency in that small town. Just a racist, McKinsey trained rat. But I wrote something about it, and boy, does he have, they might be bots. I have no idea, but what do you want him to do? What do you want a person in a position of power, the only person who has any authority over the airlines, what do you want him to do?
Yeah.
They're so ready.
First off, he benefits a lot from identity politics, obviously, because he's gay, but he's still he's a white male. That's still is a very, how much are you benefiting? He was crafted from McKenzie to become the president. This is
100%.
ages ago. And he served in the military. His military they got tons of pictures of him holding his gun wrong and just, you know, he
Yeah.
played Boy Scouts in the military is what he did. He's one of those guys that
It's
wanted
like
to pad the
check
resume
it off
with
on
that.
his resume. Yeah, exactly. So he was warned, over the summer, there was like the horrifying meltdown of, I think it was kind of across the board in the airlines, was warned, was pled with by something like 37, 38 attorneys general across the country, both Republicans and Democrats, to do something in time for the holidays. And what's really not most galling, because it's all just disgusting, because he did nothing except for go on comedy shows, late night comedy shows, and say we got it taken care of, and just everybody's gonna be in good shape, and I've told them to what they have to do. But Southwest Airlines, which was hit especially hard, is a slightly cheaper airline, so of course it impacts the people who can least afford to be impacted once again. But anyway, we should take a look at, because the Lever did a really nice little piece on what he could have done and how he once again falls short. You ready? Here it is.
Do you think this issue will be sorted in time for the holidays?
I think it's going to get better by the holidays.
I wasn't anticipating a nightmare, but it became a nightmare. It did.
16,000 canceled flights.
Passengers forced to sleep at airports, luggage scattered from city to city.
Again, your bags will not be here.
4 months before Southwest's mass cancellations, 38 state attorneys general from both political parties sent a joint letter to congressional leaders explicitly calling out Buttigieg's transportation department for failing to respond and provide appropriate recourse for frustrated airline flyers. Buttigieg's agency has continued to do almost nothing to prevent all of this from happening again. He hasn't fined any of America's largest airlines for unpaid refunds or mass flight cancellations, despite thousands of consumer complaints.
We've seen a lot of improvement from this summer when I called on the airlines to step up their game.
How many of Senator Sanders' calls to action are actively being considered?
Well, we've seen a lot of improvements, especially with airline delays and cancellations.
Passengers are sleeping in airport hallways.
The airlines received billions of dollars in bailout money during COVID and aid during COVID.
Their systems needed to be upgraded for some time, and the airline knew that. It's just that they diverted their funds elsewhere.
Should Southwest have known that these types of delays would occur?
In my opinion, yes. Our scheduling IT infrastructure is outdated and can't handle the massive cancellations that had to happen that day when the weather event occurred. It can't keep track of where pilots are, flight attendants are, and airplanes are. And they said they're working on it, but of course the investment wasn't made.
I'm truly sorry. We are the first airline to be able to reinstate our dividend, and not only that, but reinstate it in full.
Thousands of people stranded and desperate to get home.
What's going on? Why are you selling something that you're not providing?
As I press the airlines to enhance their customer service plans, to do it in writing.
How can travelers have faith in the airline? And to be frank, have faith in your department as a watchdog if these problems keep happening?
I mean, I was kind of shocked to see two different reporters push back on him at all. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but the way they do it is typical. I mean, I want to push back on those reporters. I don't want to give them any grief because they covered it. But typically, mainstream media will lob up the criticism and give them a lot of time to speak over the answer.
Yeah.
Which is why even if people saw those two clips, they got left with Pete's answer talking the last 2 minutes afterwards, which was cut out of this clip of him,
Yeah. And so there was a lot of what could he do? He could find them. And I don't know if he alone, I don't think could allow the attorneys general from states to sue on behalf of their constituents. But that is a problem because he is the only person right now who is allowed to meet any regulations on these airline industries. There's no recourse for regular people.
I mean, if you're inclined to give Pete the benefit of the doubt, you'll believe all the crap they say on TV. But like if you follow the railroads situation, you see where his motivation lies. It's in fighting the working class, 100% anti-working class.
Yeah. And, I was listening to somebody say, like, so why is he doing this when he knows he's being called out publicly, humiliatingly, right? And it's such a, like so many policy discussions that we have, whether it's Medicare for all or canceling student debt or whatever, wildly popular to hold these criminal CEOs to account, and he doesn't. And the only explanation is that he's hoping they're going to bankroll his next presidential, journey, right?
Well, I mean, he can choose. He's got two resumes. He's got the resume with the public, which if it was his actual resume, not fluffed by, the media backing him up, would be terrible. He would have this move that they put him in as the Secretary of Transportation was supposed to pad his resume and help him. Like, it's a safe spot. You can't do anything wrong. But now all these issues have come up since he's been there. And so his other option is, well, which resume is more important? And it's his resume with corporate class.
Yeah.
And they see him handling this airline industry stuff great. Like, he's not punishing big business for,
right.
They're
fraud.
Southwest case,
they're selling something that they're not delivering, right?
Yeah. And literally increasing profits. You don't have to give out dividends, and you haven't even done it in the past few years.
Right.
To give out dividends in the exact same time when they're having this crisis is just like, even Pete calling that to the table publicly could have a huge impact on this stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, I just don't understand the bailouts that come with no regulations or no concessions or no parameters, right? That you can just take your COVID money and go to stock buybacks and reinvesting dividends instead of investing in IT infrastructure as we saw in, I don't know if we're going to show it, but we have another clip from a couple weeks ago, the rail workers, which also falls under Pete Buttigieg's purview, right? The only thing that is going to mean anything to these CEOs is the bottom line. So they don't mind paying a little bit of penalties because a few $1 million is nothing against the billions that they make every year. It has to be, and they don't mind public anger, apparently, because people are furious, but then it just disappears. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, it's in the same vein that hospitals who deny coverage knowingly can only face something like a $25,000 criminal penalty, which compared to the cost of the services is nothing. So, I mean, they may have changed that a little bit recently, but that was the
that
for
penalty
years.
is always going to be worth it to them. Right.
Right. It's a cost benefit analysis. So so Southwest is taking a hit with the public, but then, a year, 6 months from now, somebody poor needs to fly. Southwest is the poor flight. They're going to, the less expensive flight. They're going to take that flight. I mean, most people, it's just ridiculous. But we should show how Pete handled the railroad crisis. And our friends at Useful Idiots had a good segment on it.
If these pundits, can at least offer a guess as to, how much it has cost the U.S. economy, that, as Surface Transportation Board Chairman Martin Oberman himself said, since 2010, the Class 1 rail carriers have spent $46 billion more on stock buybacks and shareholder dividends than they have spent investing in railroad maintenance, right? And so, like, if the tracks are, falling apart, if the trains are derailing, right, just know that that's coming because the owners of these companies thought it was more important to pay themselves through stock buybacks and shareholder dividends than to actually protect the public and railroad workers by investing in railroad infrastructure. Like, the thing I would say is that when we talk about the corporate takeover of America, like, like that can sound pretty opaque and shadowy, but this is what it actually looks like. This is what happens when the reigning, philosophy is to eliminate the costs of treating your workers like human beings. If you treat workers like just faceless meat bags and no one stops you from doing that, you can exploit the shit out of them and extract a lot more value from them and their labor. And this is what companies and businesses across the country are doing. I think one thing we should really emphasize is what is happening on the railroads, even though it is a very specific situation. The kind of corporate dynamics, the cost cutting, the labor disciplining, the piling more work onto fewer workers, the turning a business into a profit generating scheme for Wall Street. All of that is happening all around us, and workers in different industries are taking notice. And I think one good thing to come from this whole miserable process is more and more workers across the different craft unions in the railroad industry are uniting around shared principles and shared demands and big ideas like, hey, let's nationalize the railroads and remove these blood-sucking parasites who are draining everything from the system and actually put it under democratic control. Or, hey, why don't we get the 12 unions to act in greater concert so that the different fingers of the craft railroad unions can become a powerful swinging fist in situations like these.
He's our Mick Lynch. I love him. I mean, we have a few of them, but like he's great. And he puts it so eloquently, but that is what is happening across every different part of the whole economy.
Well, that takes me back to, I mean, since we're having the storms and the power companies, the other major power company in California is PG&E. And PG&E is responsible for all the wildfires, and they knowingly basically they told their field people not to notice these problems that they knew were happening.
Right.
Which was that they had these big, heavy transformer things hanging on hooks, and they were so old that the hook would start sinking into the thing holding it. When that fell, it would cause a fire.
Right.
And they knew that, and they pretended like, well, it's we'd have to fly by with helicopters, and meanwhile, people on the ground with the camera could just look up there and take a picture.
Right.
So
we'd have to do our job.
Total lie. But where you see that fuse with the government is you got Newsom out there peddling, well, we can't really punish, you don't want to punish PG&E. You don't want to hurt them too much because of all the people that own stocks, the moms and pops that own stocks in PG&E.
Sure.
And so that's their narrative for not punishing them.
Tens of thousands of acres of wildfires that were caused by them a couple years ago, and they paid almost no penalty at all.
Almost none. And Newsom's office gave them like a green light as a safe company recently or something that was just, and people at PG&E that are in the know are like, PG&E shouldn't even exist. Like this should have ended them as a utility company. It should have been a takeover or something. There should have been some oversight. And instead we're getting the narrative from our literal progressive governor that, well, if we go too hard at them, it's going to hurt stocks and we can't.
I handed them a strongly worded letter and asked them to shape up.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on? Spin the wheel. Next fun subject.
What do we got? Oh, look at those shots together.
Look at those shots just waiting for us.
Yeah, baby.
Well, we are now into our third year with COVID, with a new variant. The most appalling thing, I think, was after 2 years of China being derided by Western media for their zero COVID policy, they finally bent and started opening things up. And now I think it's the only country that's on the list that has to test to come into the US and I think the EU, if not the UK. Yeah.
And the point is, as this tweet says, to be clear, the dangerous variant slamming New York City, and that's about to sweep the US over the next few weeks, did not come from China. It's here. It's 100% homegrown right here due to our lack of mitigations. And they're trying to set up the implication it came from China as a deflection, which is clearly the case. You're hearing all this stuff about China. And to go from criticizing them for being too locked down, and when they were one of the only few countries that sort of, and they did go too far. I mean, in a lot of ways. I would have to say. But we got what Americans would want, which is let it rip, and now they're going to be the scapegoats for this whole thing again.
And it's all so ridiculous because obviously, unless everybody is using those same precautions and testing, which I think everybody should, and masking and all that kind of stuff, to do it just from one country and let everybody just bebop around the world spreading the virus.
I mean, you could have a flight from New York to California.
Yeah.
And, you know, the people that came from China are tested, but like 90% of the people coming from New York last week were coming from New Year's parade.
Right. Yeah.
Which,
yeah.
Where the
even
virus
if
is ripping.
The video with the Southwest cancellations, I mean, most of those people were not wearing masks in the middle of, well, I shouldn't even say in the middle of a surge. We've basically this whole year has been a surge, or this whole past year, 2022 was all surge. I don't think it ever let down. I think Japan just had their highest week of deaths of the year. I mean, we have just not had a single plummet in cases in a year. I think we've never gone below 2,000 deaths a month in this past year.
And well, there's definitely a spike. So, and you got to realize, like, they've changed a lot of the reporting metrics. Like I said last week or 2 weeks ago, I mean, the water treatment level, the sewage level, the level of COVID in the water treatment plants is the best metric to go on because there's so little accurate reporting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, it's just so depressing, but the more we learn about how it affects your vascular system and your organs, even mild cases, but it's not reported on. And, you know, there've been some high profile deaths, like Pele just passed away, the Brazilian soccer great. And they didn't even talk. They said it was because of cancer, of colon cancer. But then finally, so as this person says on network news, they said Pele died of colon cancer. Glad I also watched PBS NewsHour. He had cancer, but it didn't kill him. That was COVID. I wish news outlets would stop fudging cause of death reporting. They're journalists, not policymakers. Why won't they report the facts? And the only exception I would take to this is even policymakers should be, you know, worried, concerned about the fact that this is running rampant. And again, like, I think first of all, like when Trump was talking about the China virus, all liberals were correctly calling him out for being racist. But then I think one of Biden's first ads when he became the Democratic nominee was basically like how we're going to shut down China. It was also equally like racist and xenophobic. But now they've just decided that let it rip and mass infection is okay, actually. I mean, that's, you know, Biden, I think, was only elected because people thought possibly he would handle it better. And he has been just as disastrous as Trump with no pushback.
I absolutely believe that he got elected because of COVID. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, his numbers were in the shitter completely, but the bleach stuff with Trump was too intolerable, even for some people on the right. And you know, but what we've got is we got a lot of these people in power. They do recognize it. Like Kamala recognized it. Yeah.
Kamala Harris requires negative COVID-19 tests from senators, guests. They have to provide a negative COVID test. So when people say living with COVID, what's extremely disturbing is that despite seeming to be fully aware of COVID and its dangers, she's only willing to protect herself. She hasn't spoken up at all about people wearing masks to protect themselves or taking this virus seriously. Yeah, I mean, the idea of living with COVID should not mean let it rip. It should mean taking very simple precautions, testing, masking, isolating when you're sick. I mean, it's not, you know, people keep saying like, oh, it's a full lockdown forever. You just want to lock down and mask forever or let it rip. Those do not have to be the only two options that we have.
Yeah. I mean, step one is, hospitals, wear masks in hospitals. Is that crazy? Like that's too much for you? Yeah. Masks in hospitals. Okay. So masks in hospitals, masks on transportation. You know, the Supreme Court, which is very conservative, ruled that Biden has the authority to mandate masks on interstate
transportation.
travel, public transportation.
But they are just not willing to do a single thing.
Yeah. And here's the thing. The public supports it if they think that it's to fight a surge. And if you don't think fighting COVID is fighting the surges, the whole thing is you got all these surges all the time. That's the whole point. So the public supports it, but they don't believe that there's surges. And they think that we've got these medicines now that'll be okay. But it turns out that a lot of these medicines aren't working on the new variants.
They're not working on the new variants, and the tests aren't detecting the new variants, actually. They're realizing. And half the tests that were just sent to me by the government, because you could sign up for 4 more free or whatever, expire in a week. I got them last week and they expire in a week. So
well, I heard some good news on that one.
Tell me.
So don't panic.
Okay.
If they say expired, they're supposed to be good they extended that. So the expiration date, they extended it. It's not.
They just scratch it out and say,
we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
And so we just a heads up, we have to be very careful talking about this because our last show immediately got pulled, and we don't share anything nonsensical about COVID. We're very rational. If anything, we might err on the safety side, but we're not spreading disinformation. We're not taking one study and blowing it up. And YouTube pulled our video and we appealed, and they got nothing for why we were appealed. They're just like, you said some
medical misinformation. Yeah, medical misinformation. Magical expiration extension. And haha, I do the same thing with milk. Just change that expiration date and drink it down. This is your reminder that our COVID death rate is artificially low because we're not counting anyone who dies more than 30 days after a diagnosis. What's interesting, and I remember we talked about this a few weeks ago, you can't sign up for new health insurance unless you're 60 days out from testing positive for COVID. That's where you really always need to look, is like the life insurance and health insurance policies. And then, because they know where the money is and they are all about that bottom line. So they're not going to invest in a life insurance policy for you if you are within 60 days of COVID, because they know that you might still kick the bucket, and that's not a payout they want to incur.
Well, and you're starting to see a lot of economists coming forward and being more pessimistic than the damn health people, because economists are trying to say, look, there's no way, like, you can ignore all this long COVID if you want, but you got like 4 million people not working because of long COVID. Like, if you don't think that's going to have an impact on our GDP, you're crazy.
Pay now or pay later. And that is from Forbes magazine, because they know that between our, obesity, unhealthy food supply in this country, people not being insured, people not getting sick pay, people having long COVID, it's only a matter of time before this has major repercussions to even the people who only care about the bottom line and just getting workers to work.
How long COVID may impact the job market. Yeah, many of us had not had COVID on our minds super recently, or at least not as much as previous years. But it could impact 2023. So next year it might.
We'll see. We'll see if it.
4 million people are affected by long COVID. So.
Yeah. Many employers are experiencing a labor shortage. Long COVID exacerbates the situation, with an estimated 4 million Americans out of work due to long COVID. Staffing issues are not going to get any better in 2023. So, I do just wonder, because again, even if you only care about the bottom line, I don't understand not giving people sick pay, because, as sort of, it's not trite, but like, we're only as healthy as the least healthy among us. This is a global pandemic. So I don't understand the logic behind wanting people to plow through it and come to work sick, because it's just going to like flatten your whole workforce.
Right. And if we had two parties that were actually opposed to each other, the opposing party, the Republicans, would be coming at the Democrats for their poor handling of COVID. but they also are just bottom line short termers. Everyone
Get people
paying
back to
them,
work.
they're like, hey, don't, we can't afford our business to take a $1 cut when we need to give stockholders extra money for dividends,
Yep.
So they're just pushing all this bullshit narrative. So this narrative particularly bugged me because this is why a lot of people thought this was a big part of the reopening, is that kids are killing themselves because they can't get into schools. They can't, they're not around their peers.
Teen suicide and depression from being quarantined.
Yeah, and it turns out that child suicide dropped tremendously when school shutdowns were the highest, and increased when schools open.
I mean, I just have to say, and I'm glad that this man, and he's not a doctor, but this is his specialty, is suicidology. But I mean, it was a year ago already, or 8 months ago, that he had quite a bit of data and was pushing back against the narrative. But, it's like if you tell a lie enough, which the media and the policymakers and the Biden administration kept pushing, that's what people believed, learning loss and suicide, depression, like that. And, of course, they make it seem like, oh, you just get those kids back into their shitty schools that don't have ventilation, that are underfunded, where they can't go outside, where they don't have healthy food. And that's the magic button that's going to prevent them from being depressed. And they made it seem like it was just being out of school that was causing depression, not mass death around you. Right.
Well, and all these narratives are so much easier to believe if you're a parent at home struggling because you're personally frustrated just with, your kids around and having to be a teacher and juggling, a job at home. And, the public is going to be eager to get back to normalcy every time. But your job is not to just say, well, if the public wants back, we got to let the kids die.
But also, it was a certain segment of the public who are also the ones who watch cable news, who are more privileged, whose kids are in better school systems, who have, a few of them like Leanna Wen and Dr. Jha, their kids were at fancy schools in Newton where they made sure they had ventilation. Protected. Yeah. So great. Get those kids back to school. But among poor communities and Black and brown communities across the country, they were still heavily in favor of keeping their kids home and masking, like all the things that protect them. They were still heavily in favor of. So this was another example to me of the tail wagging the dog, where the policymakers 100%. And the politicians and the CEOs decided, hey, we need to open up, get the kids back to school so we can get the parents back to work. So then they would say, people don't want to mask anymore. They're over it. People are done. We can't, we have to go where the people lead us. And the more they kept pushing that narrative, the more the people said, yeah, okay, I guess we're done. People are done. Nobody else is doing it. Right.
Well, it all came right from the White House too. I mean, it wasn't just like people with their difficult situations. The White House led this message that, the pandemic was over. When did he say that? When was Biden?
That was 2021 when he told everybody to take masks off right before 4th of July.
Right. So this was just this week.
Oh my God.
The press secretary. And look at us today. I remember, you guys, some of you were here for Jen's first briefing, Jen Psaki. I love saying
never
Psaki.
Thought I'd miss her, but boy, Jean-Pierre's giving a...
Anyway, there were 14 of you masked up, and look where we are 2 years later. We're in a different place. And so I think that's important to note. She's literally saying, here are you guys not following COVID protocols and being safe, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, rip those masks off.
Where's the pushback on that? I mean, the press isn't pushing back.
No.
They're the ones not wearing the masks.
Yeah, and I should have pulled it, but there was an article, I think it was in the Atlantic, about there's the People's CDC that has a lot of the doctors that you and I both follow on Twitter, and I think probably a lot of you, Gonzalez and the data, like there's a bunch of them who take COVID and long COVID really seriously. And this article was written to kind of make them seem like they are addicted to COVID and that they want to mask forever. And that has been a big effort put out by this administration to, just shame everybody into getting back to the new normal. Everyone's going to get it anyway. If you tell somebody you haven't had COVID yet, they sort of laugh at you like you're being too precious with your one life.
That's crazy. I mean, even liberals I know, I went to a wedding the other day. I was literally the only person masked in a small house wedding with, 50 people in one room. And I'm the only one masked. And there's babies and kids there. It's just like,
insanity.
what the fuck is going on with this country? But,
right,
like I said, I don't want to blame people too much, because when you go through something tough, which psychologically affects a lot of people and economically affects a lot of people, you're more inclined to grab that. Well, okay, this is our way out. This is our way out. It's not that bad anymore. They keep telling us it's not that bad anymore. I can't just focus on this. I can't. What are we going to do? Mask forever?
Like public health, it's public. And when that starts disintegrating, it's hard to be the only holdouts when your kids are going to school, when you're having to go to work, when everybody's sort of moving on. And even knowing that COVID persists, when there are no actions being taken to mitigate that spread, I think people are making, their own sort of cost benefit analysis of like, what am I protecting anymore if I can't do anything I ever used to do, or a lot that I used to do, with no end in sight and nobody trying to, pave a path forward.
And to end that pattern, literally all the news has to do is release facts about long COVID to people. If they just talked about long COVID, talked about how it's a cumulative risk factor, the more you get COVID, the more likely you are to have all these exponentially problematic issues,
all right, we need a shot. Definitely need a shot. Let's spin that wheel.
There's a lot of shots sitting there waiting on it. We haven't had
I know. No. 42 minutes in. What? Oh, come on now. I'm overriding it. Don't we have like a shot?
There we go. We'll leave this up so we remember.
All right.
Let's just, in lieu of spinning, let's just do that next.
Cheers, everybody. Oh my God. Some people make New Year's resolutions for a dry January, but you will not find those people here.
I saw that was a thing.
Yeah. All right. Are we going to do the? Yeah.
I'm just like, don't say no nut November. Don't say no nut November.
Too late. No nut November. Okay, so now we're doing the billionaires.
Yeah, billionaires. What do we got?
Let's move on. Well, there was a great. Wait, let me take this. Yeah. Okay. There was, because the media cannot help but lionize and hero worship our billionaires, the billionaire class, because we've recently seen the swift fall of Elon Musk. But boy, they're going to, and even Warren Buffett had a moment where people realized, oh, he's CEO of one of those railroad
stuff.
Yeah. But they're still going with the Bill Gates. He's the good one. Microsoft mogul gave $5 billion to what? To whom? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to finance work in global health development policy, advocacy, and U.S. education. Right. What they don't talk about is that he also gave like over $300 million to different media outlets, which then give grants to young journalists who then write fawning, editorials and pieces on Bill Gates and all of his good works. Somehow this actually has been forgotten, that Bill Gates decided that the vaccine formula shouldn't be shared with the global South. And even though the World Health Organization was building a platform for vaccine production in all countries, Bill Gates and his rich friends said no and replaced it with COVAX, which puts profits first. And just in case you didn't know, next after the United States, who funds the World Health Organization? It's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So his $5 billion is well spent.
I mean, I hate to take this back to Hillary shit, but I mean, it just reminds me of Hillary, not what it was,
The
the Hillary Victory Fund,
global,
Global Initiative,
the Clinton Global Initiative. Yeah.
CGI, Clinton Global Initiative. And so they became a reservoir for donations for people thinking they were helping things. And they get all this credit for like helping fight AIDS, you know.
Yeah.
But basically what it did is it stopped contributions to organizations that actually would have done something. And a lot of that money ended up going to their buddies who ran these groups. Like, you know, Haiti to this day hates the Clintons
they
like a
despise,
passion.
yeah.
Because there was all this money that was going to go to Haiti when they had all their
the floods,
natural disasters. And basically they became the go-to place to donate your money to Haiti. And all that money went to like
their
Bill
friends
Clinton's
to contract.
cousin had you know, it was just failure after failure, moldy tents for people in lieu of housing. And just,
I mean, it's money laundering and it's reputation laundering, right? So like Bill Gates gets this fawning piece about how he's the biggest charitable donator of all the billionaires. And then you find out, but he's giving it to his own foundation, which he uses to influence media, to influence the World Health Organization, to shut down the distribution of vaccines or the formula being passed on, to waive the patent so that it could be produced in other places. And now they're even shutting down COVAX. And in the New York Times, they wrote it up like there just wasn't a lot of interest in it in the global South. Well, I mean, they would have had to pay for it. It came much too late. They couldn't manufacture it fast enough, like all these different things. So it is, you know, the reason that people need philanthropy is because of a system that has been set up by people like Bill Gates and the Warren Buffetts of the world, who use their vast sums of money to lobby for policies that get them even more money so they can, you know, they can monopolize, they can go against unions. And then the very people they're harming, they give little handouts to and get patted on the back by their wealthy friends.
Yeah. And often those handouts, like as with the Clintons, you can point to something that both the Clintons did and Bill Gates did that cost $100 billion. And you could say, wow, how can you argue against that? Well, you can argue against it in that the organization took in $5 billion, for example.
Right.
So, you know, when you're talking the zeros at that level, like doing millions of dollars of good when you have billions,
right?
You're harming the cause because people think they believe these narratives that you're the good billionaire and they're good things are being done, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't know. Do you want to go down our list of the billionaires?
I mean, let's just shoot down it real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, what I want to point out is that billionaires are not necessarily smart. They're not necessarily geniuses. They're not necessarily anything other than they have a lot of money, and people accredit all these things to Tesla, for example, and Elon Musk as being some genius. He bought Tesla. Tesla electric car was already made and done with. And Tesla, you know, he got booed here in San Francisco not that long ago.
That was awesome. Dave Chappelle brought him up on stage and he got booed because
he yelled out, "I'm rich, bitch." Like which
read the room, buddy.
Ooh,
yeah. He did want to remind everybody again, 12 months ago, I was person of the year. He put that out yesterday. And yes, he was. And that is because our corporate media needs to extol the virtues of the meritocracy, where you can make $1 billion if you just work hard enough. And they leave out how you actually are stealing it by exploiting your workers and ravaging the globe. Tesla illegally told workers not to discuss pay or workplace issues. The company repeatedly instructed workers to not talk about pay or complain to higher level managers. That is illegal. You're not allowed to do that. Laid
off a bunch of people right before Christmas.
This one was also really gross. He wound down remote work, ended staff allowances, and turned offices at Twitter's headquarters in San Francisco into bedrooms so that's where you had to rest. That's where you stayed. Doesn't that sound lovely?
Yeah. And I read an article about how Silicon Valley executives are praising Elon because they're like, dude, somebody has to tell workers that they can't keep fighting for their rights. They're like, they're
Tame
loving,
those
they're like,
workers.
you know, the more evil he is, the better they are, because they can just come in as the lesser evil. Like, we're the tech company that, you know, isn't such shitbags. And finally, someone's putting the workers back in their place.
And by the way, he also donates a ton of money to different media corporations, as does, of course, Jeff Bezos, who bought the Washington Post. I mean, there is a reason that they buy up these big media ventures, because then they're less likely to be called out on their despicable practices.
Well, I mean, he literally bought Twitter, which is the top place to push back on media narratives. And but you know, the corporate class is always going to come out and defend this bastard, like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, that was really, I mean, I know he's supposed to be kind of a shitbag anyway, but that was also kind of disappointing, because sometimes he seems like he's a little bit on the sort of more open-minded progressive side. While casting shade on Elon Musk for what he's done, is doing, or will do, try to pause and remember that he made electric cars a normal thing in society, and he commercialized space for cargo, satellites, and people. I mean,
imagine cheering on commercializing space.
Amazing.
Like, that should tell you enough. If that doesn't tell you Elon's in it, well, anyone on Twitter, which is probably our audience, has seen publicly all of the debacle of him buying Twitter. Like, I love that it's on display for people every day. What
just in real time.
Just even if you believe he's making okay moves, his attitude on Twitter is so out of touch with people that it's costing billions of dollars. Like, Twitter is, he bought it for 44 billion, and it's probably worth like 30. His own Tesla's taking a shit. Tesla is going down hard. Tesla was at almost $400 a year ago. Now it's at just 120 or something.
Yeah.
And then, but this is the big move that's going to push Tesla over the top. This truck that allegedly, and this part I don't know, but like, they're talking about how it doesn't have the normal crumple zone. It doesn't have
airbags.
It's too heavy to drive because it's a big, heavy beast.
It's just a tank.
It's going to spin out all. I mean, the arrogance. What you have with him is arrogance. It's just him pointing out to his staff, make this happen. And there's been documentaries on it. He's like, make this happen, and they come up with this truck. It's like,
oh my God,
let's do it. Let's go.
Well, and remember a couple years ago, there were some talk about trying to get high-speed rail in California. And that's when he came out with his Hyperloop, because what he basically wanted to do was shut that down so that and his Hyperloop was just a tunnel. I mean, like, that's been invented, my friend. But he he wanted to shut it down.
But the stupidity of it was not just a tunnel. I mean, it was a tunnel with individual cars.
Yeah. I mean,
like, your car would be in a tunnel.
We have tunnels. Like, that doesn't, the difference between having high-speed rail that can have hundreds of people on it and then individual cars, which we already have, right? Just give it a cool name.
But imagine, like, your car just breaks down in the tunnel. Like, I mean.
Yeah. No, and he knew it. I mean, and his what did he call it? Hyperlink or whatever. That wasn't going anywhere, and he's admitted as much. But he just didn't want anything to make a dent in the profits he can make off of selling individual electric vehicles, right? Electric vehicles are not the solution for global warming and our climate disaster. The solution is mass transit and creating fewer individual cars. I mean, that's a solution. More walking, more public transportation, not just like better individual cars. But anyway. No good billionaires. No such thing.
All right. Let's skip the Tate thing. I don't know. Do you guys want to hear about the Tate stuff or not? I think everybody followed that story with Andrew Tate, shitbag, grifter, millionaire. And Greta put him in his place. So kudos to her. You know.
Yeah. I think let's move on, because we only have one more subject, right?
All right. Oh, we only have one more. Look at all the shots. We're getting shots.
Yeah, baby.
Okay, I mean, 5:55, and we're only on our second shot. Third shot, right? Because we did one. We overrode the system. Or is this? I don't know. I've been doing. Okay, I have an admission to make.
Second shot.
I've been doing a little bit of shots on my own. Don't know if you all can tell. Cheers.
Ooh, that new one's got some burn. Oh, hey, 1980s.
Our graphics called 1980s called. All right.
What else we got?
Yeah, baby.
Hey, there we go.
All right.
I'm gonna leave that one out because we need
yeah, let's leave that one up. And just because I despise him so much, can I do my my Pete one that's just a little bit funny?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Here we go.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. So, on behalf of Southwest Airlines, I would like to say that we fucked. Can I say we fucked up? I can't. Okay, so we effed up. We effed up completely. So the holidays change every year. We never know what to expect. We don't actually watch the weather. We like to be surprised. And so, and the way our system is set up at Southwest is actually that we don't have a system. So we operate on more of a let go and let God policy. And this past week, God has been gone. Like we don't know where he is. So we are trying to figure that out. We will definitely have it figured out by tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, definitely Tuesday or Wednesday of the week after next. I will say to please stop sending us pictures of your family sad like Hartsfield Jackson, because we are trying to enjoy the holidays with our families. It does bum us out to see you being poor. So just trust that soon you will be on one of our Southwest flights, listening to one of our wonderful flight attendants tell one of their silly little jokes on the intercom while you look for your children on the plane.
I liked it. She's good. She has some good things. We have a comment, Pat. What are you drinking today? What burned your throat?
Oh, the burning throat is Wolcott. It's from Total Wine and More. They recommended it.
All right. Another billionaire, by the way. I think Total Wine is a billionaire.
God
guy.
damn it. Don't tell me I have
know.
to shop somewhere else for that.
You're never you won't be able to escape it. There's just no way. You individually cannot bring down this system, Pat. I know you're trying, but you can't do it. So drink.
But I can promote good local breweries like
okay, there
New
you go.
Glory. New Glory.
All right. I like that.
Made in Sacramento. Excellent beer.
By the way, oh my gosh, do you remember? I want to give that comedian Erskine is her last name, I think. I'm gonna have to find it and post about it because I thought that was a really cute. I know we just sort of moved on from that.
She always does funny stuff.
Yeah,
she's pretty
good. She's good.
She's good. Oh, can I just point this up since they were talking about Southwest and the funny little chats? Allegedly, Delta pilot blamed Pete for the flight delays on air, and then got ripped by like the flight attendants or somebody. But like,
well, kudos to him for
good.
speaking up because somebody has to. All right, are we spinning last one or should we just do it?
I think we run it out. I'm gonna remove things until we get to force the vote. Could be 4 shots right here.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
right,
baby.
There's one.
Okay, when we back end it like this, yeah,
Oof,
you did.
I shouldn't
Here
have
we
done
go. Oh my goodness! Don't forget, I still have a bottle of wine to drink. Cheers.
All right. For those following at home, I'm not drinking a full shot over here. These are little half shots. So
give away.
Yeah, baby.
I'm gonna let this get out of that. They do add up. They absolutely add up.
Who's doing a dry January? Come on, put some hair on your chest.
Dry January, is that a thing?
Dry, yeah. I have a hole in my lip.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, baby.
And they're all going.
All right. Wait a second. I'm starting to see double. We should have done this earlier. Okay, I might have to follow your lead and just do a half a shot. Oh my god. Cheers.
Oh, shot. Oof.
Yeah, baby.
I'm one cleanse. Bree,
Okay.
why won't Bree just go away?
Why? Well, okay. I mean, obviously, we're joking. I love her. I love that she has been on this since the beginning because she was totally right. We all knew she was right. And anybody who was arguing against it was just a toady for the elite class of people in power. And watching what's happening now, this is about force the vote. I know you all know, but because I just had 5 shots or something, I'm stumbling.
Start from the beginning. Start from the beginning.
Start from the okay. So 2 years ago, no, I'm joking. I was born. No, watching what's happening with the Kevin McCarthy votes in Congress is sending establishment liberals into gales of laughter and some weird schadenfreude where they think that this is a party in disarray, which possibly it is, but instead of taking what you should take from that, which is this is how politics works. What are you fighting for? Whom are you trying to represent? I don't agree with anything Republicans do at all. I loathe them. But watching some people leverage their power is what they were put there to do. Why else are you getting into politics?
That's the whole game. They literally, the squad and whatnot, literally all of them came into power saying they were going to disrupt
Nancy Pelosi's
things.
corrupt.
She's corrupt, blah, blah, blah. They're going to disrupt things. That it's more important to get the facts out and fight for these issues than it is to win a second term. You name it. And every single one of them could win re-election by just fighting for the issues.
That's right.
You know, they don't need to kowtow to Pelosi. But what we're seeing right now is their exact strategy that was pushed for. And I don't blame people who might disagree with the strategy. I don't think you're my enemy because you don't agree with the strategy of FTV. But FTV was a sound strategy. It was literally what they were elected for. And their excuse for not, and just to, FTV was like, they would withhold their vote for Nancy Pelosi unless she guaranteed a floor vote for Medicare for all. And there were other demands as well, but that was the main one. And so what we're seeing now is a core group of radical Republicans. That doesn't make them similar to the squad. It just means the strategy, separate of the issues, is working. It already worked because
they already got concessions.
He's lost 4 or I don't know how many votes there were today, but he did not win.
There have been 5 at this point. There have been 5. Yeah.
5 votes. He lost. He has not become speaker. So either your goal is he doesn't become speaker or he becomes speaker and you get so many concessions to earn your vote.
Right.
Change the dynamic, which was the whole point of forcing the vote.
And instead we heard there was some inside strategy and committee assignments. Meanwhile, they all either lost their committee assignments or didn't get the ones that they were gunning for. They were going to use this new, position with Pelosi to fight for a $15 minimum wage. They didn't do that either. I mean, what has the squad accomplished since they've been there? Honestly, I'd love for somebody to name a single thing, not one thing. And I am not like a fraud squad person, but I'm not sure exactly what we're supposed to be thinking right now.
So I choose to narrow the issue and not look at what they did or didn't do, what they haven't or haven't accomplished, because I think that brings in permission to argue about what they're fighting for and their public support. But I just want to look narrowly at FTV. If you look narrowly at FTV, their excuse for not doing it has all borne out to be lies because they didn't do the things that it was an abysmal failure not forcing the vote.
Okay, but I understand what you're saying, and I'm not arguing with it. I totally agree.
Arguing.
I totally agree, but they haven't done that ever, right? They never leverage their power. They never try to embarrass the people who are their seniors of the party. So they never want to be called out for doing anything that goes against the leadership. And if you are that scared to take an antagonistic approach to the leaders, then what good are you? You can say I don't take corporate money, but if you vote in line with the people who do and enable every policy that they want to pass, then it doesn't matter if you take corporate money or not. You're still serving the same people in the end.
Look, if you have a great job and it pays you $125,000 a year, for example, and you told everyone you would go in and fight for these things, forget you're a senator, but you're like, oh, when I become manager, I'm going to do this. Well, you know, what happens, even if it's not about taking corporate money, you go to work every day with these people. You have to stand up to them. And instead, you know, instead of being that person in the boardroom, which you were elected to be, who's fighting for the workers, you're in the boardroom going, ha, 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 pass me a donut. You know, like, can I have, make me another double latte? You're not actually fighting. You're not doing the exact literal things you said you would do.
Not once. And whether it's, you know, talking about Medicare for all, which they stopped talking about. I mean, God, remember when AOC actually undermined Bernie when he was still during the primaries by saying that she wouldn't necessarily, like, oh, well, we could probably negotiate. It doesn't have to be exactly Medicare for all. I mean, she was already stepping back from anything that might embarrass the people in power way back before. Well,
I keep going back to COVID, but like, it's amazing we're in a pandemic and they're not using the pandemic to speak up for pandemic protections. I mean, if that doesn't tell you, like, you expect me to believe you're going to fight to the core for Medicare for all when you're not even like putting up you're not pushing back even a teeny bit. Like, hey, Biden, how about some masks? Like there's nothing. The whole core of them are silent on it.
There was a good video. It's only a minute long, but I just love to show it because I do think that people are sort of, you know, there's a lot, like James Carville was trending on Twitter because he said something about, you know, you're supposed to take the pin out of the grenade and toss it, not pass it around. And, you know, how Robert Reich was saying that, you know, RIP to the GOP. Sorry, those shots are catching up with me. But meanwhile, like the GOP, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, it's like this narrative of welcoming back or, you know, longing for the days of the good Republicans and when they were a sane party. They have always been racist, disgusting, big business toting, evil ghouls. That party didn't die. It just spread to the left and brought in the whole Democratic Party because of Bill Clinton, right? So it just got bigger. The GOP has two wings of it now. That's what I think. Anyway.
And the Democrats have as Nina Turner said, two cheeks of the same ass. I love that line of hers.
Yeah. And they're all celebrating on the floor watching this. But what are they celebrating? Like they lost. What are they going to accomplish now in the next 2 years? Does anybody care about fighting for the policies that people need in this country?
Yeah, because ultimately they want this coup to work because the coup takes them more radically right, which allows them as a party to move more radically right as well. And they can act like, well, we're not as radically right as that. We're not further radically right.
Yeah.
And that's the whole game because that makes the donors happy on both parties.
Yep. All right. Should we just show this video?
Show it.
I'm showing it.
Well, the reality for Kevin McCarthy is Pelosi's nightmare back from 2019, as I'm sure you'll remember. She was, of course, elected as House Speaker when Democrats took back control. But progressives, newly elected progressives, led by folks like Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, were openly skeptical of Pelosi's leadership, whether she should be Speaker at that time, whether it was time for generational change, and whether they would vote against her. AOC actually voted for her at that time, and Republicans booed her on the House floor for doing so. But all of this sort of shows that while Pelosi was elected Speaker at a time of these sort of left-wing rebels, that so-called squad never ended up being the threat to the Democratic Party that these right-wing rebels are ending up being to McCarthy and the larger Republican Party. And we're seeing that play out in real time yesterday with this Speaker fight, and we're going to see this continue as they try to govern through the 118th Congress.
Yep. Thank you to Case Study QB for that clip. He does a good job of pulling those clips. Yeah, they're not a threat to power. They've done nothing to leverage. They don't, and I think it was it Cori Bush who said that they don't seem to discuss and figure out how to vote to, leverage their power or to prevent things from happening. I mean, the few things that any progressives have done, even that silly letter about possibly having some path to diplomacy, they pulled it right away when they got any pushback. I mean, I welcome their hatred. Where is that? Where are those?
And
people?
I'll be a one-term congresswoman.
Bring the ruckus, and I will be a one-term. Yep.
And she wouldn't. That's the really disappointing part, is she could be as radical as she wants, and it would only help her. It would not harm her at all. Like, even if you want to just have one of them, just have AOC be the one that's the crazy one. The other ones safely vote and protect their seats or whatever.
Yeah.
Why isn't there one?
I don't know. We need Claire Daly and Mick Wallace over here.
Let's do it.
You knew it.
All right. Are we done?
Okay. I was going to, no, I think we're done. I think we know. We all know she's amazing. We need more strong people who aren't worried about the repercussions of speaking out to the people in power. And I'm not sure how we get there. The people on strike, the union leaders, some of them, but also some of the like Max Alvarez, the way he speaks out gives me a lot of hope. But we need more of that.
We need
just two more. We need just two more members.
Hey, in the meantime, what we have is we have our word of mouth. We have unions. We have strikes. Support all striking workers. And there's a lot of strikes happening right now that people aren't, the media doesn't want to talk about them because strikes beget strikes and wins beget wins for the left.
November report showed an enormous increase in strikes, and I think it's only going to continue. I don't know what's happening with the rail workers, but we should follow that up for next week to see what's going on. Nurses going on strike. I mean, that is where our power is. So we have to just keep remembering that. Don't be afraid to have them push back. That's the whole point. Punch up. That's the whole point. That's what they were elected to do.
Yep. And I just want to change what I said in the beginning, that, I mean, this year started like we're all on our own, in a lot of ways. But solidarity is something else, and, mutual aid and strikes. We're not really on our own. We can be together on all this stuff. And that's the best I could do positively.
I think that's good. Solidarity is a verb. You all are amazing. Thank you for hanging out with us so much. We love you guys. We missed you last week. Here's to a great 2023. We all need it for sure.
Cheers and Happy New Year's, everyone.
Keep punching up.